Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wingcat Sports. Today, we are talking about the Big Ten expansion that happened earlier this week, with Oregon and Washington now joining the Big Ten. Overall, I know a lot of people out in the college football world are upset by the expansion of the divisions, but when it came to the Pac 12, the commissioner wasn't doing their job, and everything fell apart without a TV deal. I think it will be good overall for Big Ten, Big 12, all of them, as long as things get set up right in each conference. Right now, travel wise, it might be a little bit much on the
Yeah,
average college student. That's why personally I think they at least need one more team out on the West Coast, and we can kind of fix these problems with some ideas. Um, but otherwise, I think it will somewhat help the gains, make a more competitive environment in these conferences.
and more interesting for just regular day fans like me. We'll get to see teams that we don't get to see all that often. Teams like Oregon coming here, that would be interesting. Washington, there's UCLA also, there's USC,
USC.
all these teams, and hopefully for their fans as well to be able to see Michigan, you
For
know.
the average West Coast fan right now, that since you are in the Big Ten, you could literally watch a game on a Saturday from 9 a.m. till 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah,
You can watch Big Ten football on the East Coast all the way until whatever night game they might have out on the West Coast, and you just have football all day.
yeah,
For the average fan who likes to watch that much football, that's
yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah.
So it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be the worst possible thing, but you also have to think of these ramifications of
and
expanding with other sports too.
and around here it like you want to see better football. Hopefully, I mean, I don't like. Let's see here. Uh, I
Right.
don't. The Michigan and Michigan State schedules are basically unwatchable for like the first 4 weeks. I mean,
East Carolina.
East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, Rutgers. I mean, even Nebraska game. That's the first. That's the first 5 weeks of the season. You know, I don't even want to waste my time watching this boring ass shit because you know that these teams have no chance of beating Michigan. They're all going to get beat by about 40, 50 points. There's going to be nothing competitive about it. It'll be done by the time the first quarter's over. And Michigan State schedule is a little bit more interesting, but not much. And in order to, like, say, if I could see them play Oregon instead of Rutgers or, or Oregon State maybe, or USC, UCLA instead of like Indiana. I mean, I'm all for that. Give me a reason to sit down for 3, 4 hours and watch the game.
Yeah.
Well, right. I mean, that's the main thing for me. I've given up on any tradition or anything like that anymore. The things that we used to kind of enjoy in our youth and stuff have gone away. The game's changed. Everything's changed. We just want to see better matchups. I really don't want to see these small schools anymore. I don't care what kind of money it brings to them or whatever. I think that
Exactly.
you got to improve the product.
Exactly.
Like everything else. I mean, you got to make it interesting for us to watch. I mean, we pay a ton of money in streaming services and everything else, and tickets and everything else to go see these games. Give us some matchups that are at least
Yeah.
entertaining.
Yes.
I I think the Big Ten has been boring for a long time, really. When
This
you ask about it, other than a few couple teams here and there.
Yeah.
Um,
And this will make it more interesting. The one thing you got to think about overall with this expansion, though, is not just football. How is this going to affect baseball? How is this going
Basketball.
basketball?
That'll be interesting.
How is it? Because now you're adding. So football is one thing. You're traveling for one day a week, right? Think about basketball wise. You're now traveling across the country. These schedules will have to be made in the mindset of these college athletes coming from all the way from California, Oregon,
Yeah,
Washington,
I
to the Midwest.
wonder how the athletes themselves feel about
So
it.
it's going to be a very interesting thing overall. And it's not just with the big sports, track and field, right? Those smaller sports, they have to do the exact same thing. They will be making these travels. And that's really the main issue with the expansion. It's going to be good for the main money maker, which is football, but overall, the smaller stuff, it might not be as good. But in my opinion, if you're going to make this easier on everybody, maybe resolving around all sports, the Big Ten at least needs to expand to two more teams and be 20
Sure.
overall.
Yeah, we discussed this possibly another Pac-12
So
team?
I'm saying add one more Pac-12 team. Personally, I would want Oregon State. Just keep one more in-state rival. Stanford seems to be probably going to go independent. Cal, we'll see what happens with them, but I can see Cal and Washington State potentially going to the Big 12 and having them in that area as well. Washington State, I think, is going to be in the most trouble to find someone to go play, besides being stuck into the Mountain West Conference, which sucks. They have a good fan base. It has a decent football program, and you're going to get stuck into a poor conference that doesn't get recognition.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, what is we've been talking about it for years, but Notre Dame. I mean, why are they still holding out? It doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, they should.
They
be
must
in our
make more
conference.
money as an independent. Than
Well,
they
they're
do.
not going to eventually.
Yeah.
They're going to get
So they're
squeezed
gonna-
out.
So
They should have been in the Big
They're gonna
10
be-
years
they're gonna-
ago.
Navy's going to be the hardest team on their schedule eventually.
yeah.
You know,
So when you look at it, though, if you guys wanted to add one more Pac-12 team or team out west, it could be maybe a Big 12 team too. What team would you want to add? You want Stanford?
Maybe Stanford. Why
Stanford
not?
wouldn't
if
be
it's a
bad.
West team,
You know?
I'd like Stanford.
You want Stanford over Oregon State, Cal?
Yeah.
Maybe Iowa State, if you can convince them to leave the Big 12 and make it an
That
Iowa
would be
rivalry.
awesome.
That's a
You
good
could do
thing.
that,
That's a good point.
But
Right.
I would personally just want Oregon State to keep an Oregon rivalry somewhat in the West Coast.
Iowa State would be very interesting.
But Iowa State, if you went to 24, I would say add Iowa State. So if in the case for the West, if you added a West Coast team anywhere in there, reason why I say Pacific Coast is for travel reasons. I would say you become a conference with 4 divisions.
Yeah.
You still can have one main West, one main East, and they can play each other. But if you have 5 main ones, you can have UCLA, USC, Oregon, Washington, and then whatever other Pacific Coast team you pick.
Yeah.
Be on that side. Your travel's fine. Everyone plays within that division, and you make a few trips outside of it for the Big Ten. And your travel schedule isn't bad. It fixes that problem, and you do get some interesting games here and there. And then your mid conference for the West would end up being Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Nebraska. And depending on how many Pac-12 teams you add, if it's 2, then Northwestern wouldn't be a part of it, or Northwestern would be a part of that Western Conference. Yeah. Which, overall, again, not bad. You would still have Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa fighting for that. And if Nebraska's good one year, they're fighting for that division.
Yep.
Personally, I want one, like I said, one West, one the East. I want to get Pitt or Virginia to leave the ACC and be on the East.
I just
side.
was
Pitt
thinking
would be
that
interesting.
Virginia would be nice too. They're a solid competitive team, and
that would help with basketball too.
Yes, it would.
But Pitt
That
and Penn
actually
State are
would.
natural rivals. So.
If you did Pitt and Penn State, that would be one rival. But if you do Virginia, I'm thinking Virginia and Maryland. There's another rivalry. Yeah, it's not that interesting, but it creates another
I can't
rivalry.
wait for that one.
It creates another rivalry at least. But that's what I think. But the only thing is, as a Michigan fan or even a Michigan State fan, you will hate the division that I made up for it because it's Illinois, Indiana, Purdue, Michigan, and Michigan State. I think you can already know who's running that division because geographically, those are all the teams that are close to each other. So it doesn't work out the best. Michigan or Michigan State is just going to be controlling that division for a long time.
It's going to be Michigan.
In that case.
Yeah. I mean, that's horrible.
But there's nothing else you can really do geographically with how the divisions line up. Unless you threw Northwestern in there and Michigan would end up being in a division of Ohio State, Penn State, Maryland, and Rutgers. But again, if Northwestern stays in the West, then you would end up that's why I would add Pitt or Virginia actually into that division and keep Michigan in that crappy division.
Okay.
Sadly. That's a bad division for Michigan to be in only because it's not even entertaining. You watching Illinois, Indiana, Purdue every single year. But geographically,
that's better than the first 4 games they're playing this year.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been at least we played them for years,
and
we're just. I think we're all on the same page.
Indiana,
I'm done trying to.
Illinois is getting better. That's the only thing. Illinois is getting better. And then you make the same thing that you had going on this year where you have locked opponents. So you still play Ohio State every year if you're Michigan.
Yeah.
Or however you want to go about it. Michigan State can play Penn State every year, no matter what. And you do like an NFL thing where you're going to play the same ranked position in the other 3 divisions every year. And then those are your division games.
Okay.
And it would work out. You get at least a rotation,
Yeah.
and you get to see
We're just
a
being
decent
at
amount of
or
teams.
just on board now. We could give a crap. We just want to see some real football,
Yeah.
real games.
I
We
don't-
want to
yeah.
see them playing the Oregons, the USCs, the UCLAs instead of the
UNLV,
Right.
East Carolina.
right.
Yeah, that's it. Can you
Idaho,
please just
Idaho Community
Central
College
if
Michigan.
those
and
teams
stuff
were
like that.
competitive,
I mean,
if
whatever.
those teams were competitive, I wouldn't mind watching them.
But if you want one team
Right.
out of the East, I already know you want Notre Dame, so I'm going to say a team besides Notre Dame. Who do you want?
Pittsburgh.
You want Pittsburgh? Who would you want out of the East?
Virginia.
You want Virginia? You're like, well, all right. No other teams in mind?
I'm not off the top of my head that I can.
How would
think
you
of.
feel if Clemson and Florida State
I
joined
do
the Big
not
Ten
want
with that
Clemson
rumor?
coming in.
My opinion, you stay out of the Southeast. Let the
Yeah.
SEC just control the
Right.
Southeast.
Yeah.
Let them have their time down
How
there.
about Maine?
No.
I think it would be very interesting overall if you can take one of those ACC teams that's near one of our teams already and create those rivalries. Iowa
God,
State
to
out of the
see
Big 12 would be
Florida
interesting.
State in the Big Ten. Oh my
It makes no
God.
sense.
Makes no sense.
Even Clemson in the Big
We-
Ten makes
How
no
about
sense.
Leave
if
them
I,
where they
if I, but this is just a wild thing, just because I've always liked the team is South Carolina.
They're already in the SEC. They wouldn't leave.
Right, they're not going to leave. You said an East Coast team or an East team. So
Really?
Same
Realistically.
with, Ole Miss. Yeah.
No, right. Outside
Really?
of Notre Dame, Pitt.
I think Pittsburgh would be a
Pitt
good
makes the most
would
sense
be
to me.
a good option.
Yeah.
However, I don't know how well they fit in the Big Ten. I just think regionally they would make sense. There's also teams like you can try to get rid of Rutgers. I don't think you can at this point.
Oh, I would.
Please.
Ru- Rutgers
Burn
adds
that school.
nothing.
Burn that school.
Northwestern, in Indiana. I just don't want to see.
Well,
these guys
Indiana's
play.
good for basketball.
Yeah, but yeah.
Indiana has good Northwestern. What's the last time they were good in any
They
sport?
beat Michigan last year in basketball.
Well, one lucky win.
Yeah, but you're right.
The competitiveness could be more, but there's always in every single conference the weak teams. SEC has Vanderbilt, right?
Yeah.
Who's going to beat Vanderbilt? That's one bad team,
Yeah.
right? Like everybody's going to have their bad teams in division.
No,
that
I
are gonna
think
be
it's
there.
obvious who we want. I mean, Virginia, if you like that, that's not a whole bad team. But near's Pitt, Notre Dame would be the best team.
Notre
Yeah,
Dame
yeah.
would be adding back to all the already rivals they had. Michigan, Michigan State,
USC,
USC. I mean, you're putting them in Indiana,
right?
and if Indiana becomes a decent team,
right.
that could be another rivalry right there. And Purdue, you're just full of it. But with that being said, if you like what you see, like, comment, subscribe. Remember to share the video. Until
Yes.
next time, hope to see everybody soon.